Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World episode 168. I'm your host John Jordan. Don't forget to check out my daily email about blockchain gaming. You can find that at gamestx.substack.com. In today's episode, I'm talking to Chris Clay, who is the game director of Guild of Guardians. So Guild of Guardians is Immutable's mobile RPG, which has just gone live globally through the app stores just yesterday. So Chris is a little bit tired, I think you might say, but I'm really glad I got a chance to chat to him about what's going on in the sort of early post-launch period. As we get into it, Guild of Guardians, I think, is a very interesting game. It is clearly a mobile game going out through the mass audience channels. Anyone can play it without knowing anything about blockchain. If you do know about blockchain, you can have your NFTs, bring them in the game very simply, start to update them and get more powerful characters, obviously trade them on the website as well. So I think it's a really good sort of example of where blockchain gaming is at the moment. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Don't forget to subscribe. Every week we are putting out new episodes, talking to people who are building out these new concepts, these new games, these new features. I find it fascinating. I hope you do too. So do subscribe and we'll see you next time. Hello and welcome to the show. Very pleased that we have Chris Clay from Immutable, who is just one day into the launch of Guild of Guardians. So a little bit sort of recovering from a big day. How's it going, Chris?
Good. A little toasty, but yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yes.
Glad I'm in a
Good.
position where I can be here and I'm not, on the floor fixing things with the team.
Yes. Yeah, originally we had the podcast scheduled for before the launch, so I'm quite happy it's after the launch because I think you get a lot more detail that way. Take us through it from my point of view as a player. There's a little bit of a wobble where you took the servers down, but that seemed to be like a good wobble because you took the servers down because it was really busy, and then you took the servers down for an hour, put the servers back up again, and all being fine. From my point of view, that obviously that may not be the same from your point of view, but how's it gone?
No, yeah, very much so. Essentially, we launched, we pretty quickly hit about 10x where we had been in regional test launch in terms of CCU, peaking a little bit over 2K, 2400. And anytime you're 10xing something's going to go wrong. And we kept having the weirdest crashes. Like it really wasn't making sense. One of the joys of being a game director and working with my partner here, it's like you start to identify patterns. And it's like, by the way, anytime I ask for an update of some of these things we can update on the back end, like things crash. Like I think we've got an issue with the databases, and looked at the problem, basically confirmed like, yep, each of the downtimes correlated to that. Did have to take the servers down to do a little bit of maintenance to split out a database, and then after that, luckily nobody woke me up the little bit of sleep I got last night.
Oh, really?
Because things have been pretty stable since. We had one more little wobble about 15-20 minutes ago. We did a major update to some balance, and during that update we also saw a number of players drop. Not everybody, but some. So one of the great things about Guild of Guardians, I think we talked about in the podcast, is like we can update so much live without taking the servers down. And we've been catching bugs nonstop, like you kind of expect as you get a whole lot more eyeballs on, and fixing them really quickly. And then, sometimes seeing like, okay, maybe that's something that we don't do live right now. We'll wait for a maintenance window to do so. But it's gone well.
Yeah, good. Now, I guess it seems to be when there's obviously a certain amount you can sort of simulate, and obviously you do regional tests, but when you have a global launch and different sort of loads coming at different times, and then obviously maybe certain things happening on the database that you can't really simulate, and you have to go, but that's the point. That's the live process.
Yeah, regional test was read only. You couldn't perform any, transformative Web3 reactions. So this is really the first time in the wild on production that we're seeing some of those things come through. And on the whole, at least that's actually one of the things that's pretty important that nothing goes wrong in. And that's been pretty rock solid. But also just different amounts of load. And as much load testing as you do, bot accounts are never quite the same as real people. But I think we're in a pretty good place now. We've started to turn on more of the advertising now that things are stable. Starting to pull more players in. And from here on out, it really is just a a scaling challenge in terms of user acquisition and continuing to make sure that the services and everything scale smoothly. Do have a whole bunch of players having a whole lot of fun. I think we hit our first 15 star enlightenment character way faster than I expected. A lot of people had prepped with their cracked hearts and things to sort of go fast.
Yeah.
But even for me, like I've got a few NFT guardians, but I'm trying to sort of play in like that middle ground and having a lot of fun. Stuck in Brimstone right now, but progressing nicely.
Yeah. No, so I guess it's always one of those slightly terrifying things where you sort of spent however long you spent developing this game, and how are people going to sort of make their way through it, and then literally within about 3 hours, someone's come in and sort of done everything, which is really hard to do in a game that's sort of energy sort of capped in some ways, and certainly sort of in terms of leveling up your NFTs, there's sort of quite a bit of sort of capping in terms of at least you have to have the financial sort of muscle to do that. And I didn't see anyone do 50, so I saw someone that have they said like maxed out, and it was, I think they had a 3 or 4 star Ascension character and a 9-star Enlightenment character. I couldn't even work out how they managed to do that, but it's sort of, I mean, you want those sort of passionate guys, I suppose. Girls.
Yeah, like it really is important to have those people that. And it's one of the wonderful things about our community. They do care a lot. And I think that really comes through too, like at launch, there were a lot of questions, and spent a fair amount of time in Discord, basically fielding issues people were having. And I think it's one of the things that I kind of love about this space, the amount of players that they actually spend a lot of time in Discord helping new players get onboarded through some of the Web3 stuff, answering problems. And having that extra community support really helps. It has been a lot of fielding bug reports, and sometimes it's just misunderstanding. I had one panic moment where I'm like, oh my god, this bug is terrible, because I've got a philosophy of you never trust the client, the server wins, and one who's person huge fan of the game, huge supporter, was like, hey, I got into an elevator, I tapped claim, lost connection in the elevator, and I tapped claim a bunch, and I just got a ton of rewards. Like, you've got a duplication bug. And I'm like, how did this get through? And like, tried like mad to repro it, couldn't repro it. And finally I realized when you claim your sort of like daily quests or your achievements, if you hit claim on one, it claims them all just to make it fast. And he had done that. And because he got all the rewards in one click that he had clicked multiple times, he's like, bug. Whew, it wasn't a bug.
No,
there's been a few moments like that where the heart stopped, but it's been good. And like other than that, it's just going to be a lot of balancing out the economy now that it's live, now that people can actually send Guardians onto Web3. I don't think we've gotten everything quite right. I think we're going to be making adjustments now for the next couple of weeks, and then working on that forward roadmap. But it's going really well.
Yeah. And I guess as you said, sort of looking at some of these people who have really sort of leaned into it and have been setting up their strategy ahead of time. I noticed I was just looking at some of the blockchain data, and there was a big spike in NFT trading on the Guardians on the 8th of May, which is when you set the Cracked Hearts NFT live, which is sort of like a wild card. So instead, normally when you ascend an NFT, you have to have the same NFT you burn, but also you have these wild cards, which you can call Cracked Hearts. I won't go into all that, but you can sort of see people were obviously setting up their strategies about and then they sort of leaned into it. So, and I guess that's sort of good because obviously you are a blockchain game. We'll talk a bit about the sort of the balance between that, and you're a game that's been around for a while, and then some people are just like, oh, that game's still going. Wow, that's amazing. So it's good that the hardcore people have sort of really leaned into it and set up their strategy and really sort of gone for it. Because I guess at the moment they are sort of your core audience. And if you you didn't get it right with them, then it doesn't really matter with the Web2 people who are going to come further down the line.
Yeah, and it's. It has been interesting too, like fielding things in Discord. Like anything, it's crypto, so you've got FOMO, you've got FUD, and like on that sort of more FUDdy side of things, it's there are these people who have already got 15-star enlightenment characters. There's no reason for me to play, and it's like, yes, the elite of the elite are playing sort of in their own rarefied air. But the way the systems are set up, like you can win in your in your tier on the leaderboards. not everyone in any sort of competitive game is up at that sort of like top echelon. In this, they are competing economically, but it doesn't mean that you can't get through the game, free to play. I think that's something that's a little bit hard for people to wrap their head around. I do think as we get through these first couple of weeks, people who are playing free to play start getting some of those leaderboard rewards out. We have been seeing. This is one of those like, did we get the balance right? Of some people are starting to mint the characters that they're getting from some of the free summons, and that has reduced the price of those guardians. It's taken the floor down a lot, partly because they were in limited supply. Now the supply is more open. You've got bonding curds and everything to balance it out. Did we get it right? Time's going to tell pretty quickly here. But that's also one of those stories of like, for these people who are coming in, being able to mint a guardian, go on to Token Trove and the other marketplaces and sell it and like get a return. Like that's kind of like why a lot of people crypto. Get more back than you spent. And some of my job is to make sure that the dream stays alive.
And you guys should point out for the first month or so, you've got quite a decent reward pool with various sort of in-game assets and the GOG token as well. So certainly for the first month, it doesn't, people at the top end obviously are going to play their own game, but there is sort of something for everyone to sort of juice the launch period as well. It sort of is interesting when you have the obviously the NFTs for Guild of Guardians have been live. They've gone live in sort of mint at various times, and obviously the people who are interested in that have sort of got that. But now you sort of have this, and we'll get into the Web 2, Web 3 stuff here. Now you have this sort of ability for people who are just going to not know nothing about crypto, and quite carefully you don't mention NFTs. You call them Radiant Guardians. You don't mention blockchain, at least as far as I've seen anywhere in the game. So someone could quite easily, and probably hopefully a lot of people will be doing this, download the game, start playing. It's a very I think it fits very well into the sort of character collection squad RPG sort of subgenre that's been going for a decade. So there's nothing new in that sort of thing. And people can just go through this process of creating what they don't know are NFTs in it, and there's not many games that have done that. So I guess it's sort of too early for any data, but how do you think? Obviously, you think by not saying blockchain, that's you're not sort of putting people off. But equally, do you think the sort of because the power ups you get by creating an NFT, there's something you get a 30% stat boost, but it's not. You think so? You just think in terms of the gameplay, that's enough for people to go. Yeah, I'll do that because.
I mean, that's some of the hope actually. One of the ways that I put it is. A decade plus ago, back when we actually watched things on TV and saw ads, like, it seemed like every other ad was like, is your company in the cloud? And now we're all in the cloud and nobody cares because it just does what we want. There are no more ads for being in the cloud. It's just expected. And this is some of that pitch of like, do they really need to know that it's on a blockchain, or is it, can you set up the systems to do good things for them? And the technology doesn't necessarily matter. And being able to ascend those guardians and keep that language, sort of fantastical in a fantasy game. It's a little bit more fun to go by ascension seals, I think, than minting energy. And I would. It's not what we're trying to trick anybody. We're just trying to make it easy. No. And I think that is one of the things that's coming through too. Is just like Passport. It's easy to log into the game. There's not a lot of musts. There's a fuss of like all of the scary things with creating a wallet, and it's pretty straightforward and smooth. And there's been a lot of work. Like it was really really hard to get there to make it that easy. There is the next part of then you go online and all of a sudden you're on marketplaces and dealing with the nitty gritty there. That's still a little bit scarier than I'd like, but I think it's a good first step. And then that other part of it is the community helping people through some of that the scary bit. We still need to make that easier, but that's there's been right now it's good, I think, if you're going full degen. There's obviously Web 2 games, and Guild of Guardians sits in that sort of Web 2.5 space where we're trying to straddle both. It's really difficult. I don't think we've necessarily gotten it perfect, but like on that front, like of guiding people into Web3 smoothly, I think it's doing the mission that we set out for when we first started talking about the economy in earnest about 15 months ago. This is kind of the dream, and it's really cool to see that realized.
Because you sort of have, I mean, interesting to see your view on how conflicting they sort of are, but obviously you have how you would design sort of a process for people who don't know anything about blockchain, who are going to play this cool game, and they're going to maybe they are or they're not going to get NFTs out of that. So there's a process you would design for that. But then clearly there's the way that app stores allow you to do that, which are obviously they're restrictive in the sense that you probably wouldn't choose some of the decisions you've made have been made to keep Apple and Google happy rather than have the odd body. Yeah. So there's a balancing act between those sort of two things. But I was quite taking my NFTs from Passport. I was a bit almost nervous. It was too smooth. I was like, what? Okay. So in the terms of the UI, you go to a vault, and if you have NFTs because you've used the same email to log in, they're just there, and you just basically there's an arrow button, and you just move them backwards and forwards. And I was like, well, that can't be it. I had to then go to the website and check if they were still there. And all this sort of, it was just like, very, very smooth. So that was a win.
Yeah, the vault caused a little bit of confusion. There were a lot of people coming into Discord and being like, "Where are my NFTs?" But the vault is really important, particularly for those that have very large collections. And it's been working almost better than I had hoped for. And I think you're right. Like it is generally really quite smooth. There are places that we can improve the feedback. We're already building up a long list of things that we want to improve. But it's easy, and that's not something that you typically associate with the blockchain games. I think the other thing that I'm excited about is we're already learning so much more about how to make all of this stuff work on Immutable zkEVM. And just getting to share that knowledge as we get to sort of codify it more to make it easy for other people too.
Because I guess the other thing we should point out is Immutable zkEVM is Immutable's new sort of blockchain. It's running on Polygon's zkEVM under the hood, but it's sort of Immutable's version of that. And I think there have been some other games launched. There's obviously some NFTs live on it, but not only are you sort of the only game to go live on it. At any scale, you're a global mobile game, so that's the scale of that compared to most other things. It's pretty substantial. So, despite all the stuff you're doing, this is a whole other, I'm sure, worry for you. Or maybe not now, but a previous worry that how's zkEVM going to work because no one's stuck thousands of people into it. Yeah,
and having been in the blockchain space for quite a long time now, from ETH to Immutable X to now Immutable zkEVM, some of my worry has often been how is the blockchain side going to perform? And I have often been disappointed in the past of how that component worked into the mix, but it's been really good so far. It's been rock solid, stable. The actions have been quick. And I do think it really makes a difference in client, when you do something like Ascend, the little hourglass spins, and it takes a little bit of time, but it's very clean. I still think on the web, you got the pop-up and you're waiting for the data to load. It's almost still harder on the web than it is in game. That also kind of surprises me that it just feels good. And there's just that, as a game designer, one of the things you market in is just dopamine and how that works. And even though there's that little bit of delay, when it finally comes through, there is this moment of I got it. It feels good.
Yeah. No, it's much better than a
it's also,
pop-up
I will
going
say,
through gas fee.
Yeah, oh my gosh, once upon a time we were talking about having people pay gas in the app, and I'm just I'm so glad that we fought for gas-free gaming because this is so much better. And I have found it I have bought my Ascension Seals. I'm ascending Guardians to level up, and it's just fun. And it's actually even fun to sacrifice them, which I also didn't. I was a little bit concerned about. But because you have a Guardian, you've ascended it, and now you're sacrificing it for the souls, but it still feels kind of powerful and good. Maybe that's just the place I'm at the moment.
Well, I think but in terms of, that's that plays into the genre of character collection games. You're going to end up you know, with loads of double. I mean, you sort of do that quite well, where you sort of take players not on the NFT side, just on the player. You know, you just summon. You end up summoning up. First thing you do is summon 10 characters, and you get a whole bunch of dupes. And obviously, you don't want 3 of the same character. You want to level up the one, you know, the one you're going to play. So you get rid of them all. So it sort of plays into that. I guess one of the interesting UI things will be. I was sort of a bit surprised how easy it was to when you start sacrificing NFTs to send NFTs, and you're just like. Because, you know, none of mine clearly, but some of those at some point could be quite expensive NFTs, and you know, there's obviously you know, a little bit like, oh, that just sacrifice that $1,000 NFT that I didn't mean to, but obviously that's maybe a bit further down the line. If you're a DGen, that's the world you live in. So,
I mean, we have had many thousands of dollars of NFTs sacrificed, which is actually, you know, like one of the things any game designer is going to talk about are syncs. And
yeah.
You know, Guild of Guardians was built, you know, with a whole bunch of syncs in place. And anytime you're making NFTs more scarce, it's a good thing. Obviously, we've got minting, so we're making more of them. You need to have those two things balanced out. But like, it's going well. Definitely have some things that we're going to be watching closely, just in terms of abuse. Any time you have a game like this, there's always the potential there. I think we've got you know, bot detection and threat detection. I actually got detected partly because I play on multiple devices with multiple accounts. And I'm like, why can't I purchase, guys? And they're like, oh, you were shut down. You were a little suspicious. And I'm like, okay, that's not good, but that's something undoable. And like, yeah, like those systems are cooking along. I think.
And I was going to say, just in terms of the sort of the minting process, so just to in too specific, so you have this, as you sort of mentioned, you have this, I guess, a currency called Ascension Seals, and they are a sort of specific in-app purchase. I think the only way you can get them is by, you know, buying a set of them. So I think they go from $5, I think, up to, is it $200, something like that. Anyway, there's 3 different options, and you. And then when you ascend a character, depending on the rarity, at least there's different amounts of seals that you would burn. But equally, I think you mentioned this before, mentioned it in passing, seems like there's a bonding curve as well. So the price of ascending, creating an NFT isn't
keeps
fixed.
Going up.
Yeah.
Or back down. So like if you had a Guardian, like the price could go up, a whole bunch of those get burned, and then it'll drop back down. It's dynamic.
Okay. So basically, it's looking at the total circulating supply of that specific NFT.
Yeah, absolutely. Time will tell if we got those supply points right. And I think that's one of the things, like with being in the apps, like you said, sometimes you need to make compromises because you do want to be in the app stores. And Ascension Seals were one of those compromises. You know, the original plan had been for GOG to be that fuel to ascend things. Now we've got to do it once removed. We've got to take the Ascension Seals, go by GOG. We're not too far away now with the ability to use GOG to buy Ascension Seals in Web3. But as in all things, got to go make the tech work. We're close. And I think that's something that there's a possibility to expand on to, having more of those Web3 purchases funnel back into the app itself. Thank you, Epic, for fighting the good fight there. And just to be sort of clear, more generally, it seems like that this is the sort of template most people are using, where certainly NFL Rivals, have their, I think, called credit. So basically, people are having a special in-app purchase currency that you buy, and that's how you sort of do the NFT type stuff. Obviously, that plays into Apple and Google wanting 30% of they want that
economic activity. Yep. but I guess it's you have to do that, and that's sort of a better way of sort of doing it. I think it sort of abstracts it out. And I guess the other thing is, with all blockchain games like this, is most people, I think, if they're going through the App Store and they're just playing the game, it's all about convenience. As they get into the game more, then obviously they'll realise there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do on the web, and so that's the educational step that I guess hopefully that's the window that Apple and Google allow you, and it depends, I guess, on your audience.
We've got some work there. Definitely room for creators in the space to go create really good YouTube videos on like how to do some of this stuff. And beat us to it, but that's the dream.
And I mean, it's always a terrible thing when whenever you've launched something and then you sort of been working hard on that and not getting much sleep, and then obviously the journalists just go, so what's next? So without being too mean on you, because you've just gone through this process, we have sort of spoken about it in the past. These games sort of live and die in the sort of medium long term on live ops. So I guess that sort of stuff is not really very Web3 focused in the core of it. That's very much about how you make a game interesting that people are going to play it every day for a year. I mean,
yeah, no, a lot of that is going to be in the live operations, and we're set up well for that. So we've got the adventure mode that people are going to play through. That's where you're leveling your characters and everything. But the three big competitive modes right now. So you've got the endless dungeon, you've got boss rush, which will unlock in a week and change. You've got PvP, which people are already playing. And a lot of it is going to be how can we keep people entertained there and keep those interesting. We've got a lot of mutators on those for live operation events. Some of it's going to be on the economy team on can we make the rewards that are coming out of those exciting for people to keep participating. And then the other side of it is, these games, it's new content. We've got a whole suite of, future banners with new Guardians that are going to come add into the mix, shake up the meta, all of those things. Yeah. And I think that's going to be one of those telling points. Like we do our first, sort of Web3 sale. It's going to be another 3 weeks and change before that happens. But I think a lot of it's going to be like that Guardian goes out. It's going to be more limited than the core Guardians for sure. Any of the Gen 1 Guardians that are coming out of these special banners are going to be rarer. And we're in crypto, the hardcore crypto degens, they want that line going up and to the right. And does that Guardian do that? I think we've got a good plan in place to make that happen. But I think that's one of those next really big beats in terms of noise of did you get in? Did you get the sale? Did you get it? What did it do to your bags? I'm pretty confident there that our math is right, but we will see. And then the other part is just continuing to build the game. Right now it's launch, it's bug fixing, it's stabilizing, it's polishing, it's improving systems that people are finding a little bit clunky, though it's already pretty dang smooth.
Yeah. I think it's pretty good.
And then it's guilds. Guilds are in right now, but it's just very basic. And we've got our roadmap of Acts 2, getting the guild really up and running. And then further down the line, we've got pets coming into the mix. And most people love pets. Pets are cute. Pets are fun. I think we've got some cute ones there. But it's just going to be that live operations of keeping the events fresh, keeping the content fresh, keeping the features rolling in. And I think we've talked about this. It's just that's one of the places where I'm pretty confident. We're able to move really quickly with changes and getting that new content in. It's a game engine that is set up for that. Now we just got to go execute. And if nothing else, soup to nuts, from reboot to ship, 15 months, we've been executing. That's the only way you get a thing this scope done in that time.
Yes.
Now we just got to keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the sort of thing for people who don't know. So Guild of Guardians as a sort of a concept, I think, was announced in 2021, did its first, did a very successful NFT sales in 2021, 22. Obviously, that's when a lot of the sort of hype was happening in it. But that game, it was always a mobile RPG, squad RPG, but that was a direct sort of control game, and basically that all pretty much all got thrown away and you started again from scratch. So it's one of these projects that looks like it's been around for a while, but in terms of actually being worked on, this version of the game, much less time than many people imagine. And I guess it actually sort of, you mentioned a few things coming. Obviously, it's called Guild of Guardians, and that initial thing was guilds were going to be a massive sort of key part of it. And so, they're a massive part of all these types of squad games. But again, with the sort of pets, I guess pets are not something necessarily you would want to add in, but because you have live NFTs, then that you sort of, you have to do it, whether you sort of want to or not. So even though it's a new game, you still have some sort of legacy sort of components that you have to bring in to this version of the game.
I mean, it is one of the things that's been really challenging about this of coming into a game that has sold a lot of things and made a lot of promises, and finding a path forward to go make those real. It's challenging, but I think we've got a really good plan for that. It's It's hard though. It's hard. It's been a challenging, part of all of this, of like, how do we make this work, from like those initial sales that were done in a bull market to coming out into wherever we're at now. Like, this is not financial advice. I can't tell you what stage we're in right now. But ultimately, the game's live, game's playable, people are enjoying themselves, and I think we've got the tools and levers to really keep that going for quite some time to come. Hopefully we're having another chat in like 5 or 6 years about where things are at then. That would be good.
Yeah. Good, absolutely. We'll leave it there, because I'm sure you have much better things to do than talk to me. I will just sort of say I've played some of these. I played some of the test flight versions over the last year. So I'm really looking forward to this. It's sort of a game genre that I personally really like to play a lot of. Anyway, been playing it a lot since yesterday. Found it an incredibly smooth experience. So as much as that means kudos for that. And I think also, talking about the market cycle, I think it is interesting that we've sort of seen for non-mobile games. So a lot of the PC stuff, a lot of really interesting games out there, seem to be stuck in early access loops that go on for years and years and years. Whereas the one thing about a mobile game is once you stick it in the App Store and it's gone live globally, you have to have a product at a certain level, which I think you've hit. So I think it's interesting on the cycle side that we have Pixels, which is a certain type of game, seems pretty successful as a sort of crypto first game, but I think sort of you guys and NFL Rivals, which I mentioned before, going through the App Stores, maybe Web 2.5, but really, these I think is where sort of blockchain gaming, is meeting sort of the vision we had for it being mass market gaming. So hopefully a bit quicker than 5 years time we can have another chat and see where you guys are.
that was not a like, don't talk to me again for 5 years. No,
yeah, you've had enough of me. Yeah.
But yeah, like it's a lot, and like you've got to have the app in a certain state for the app stores to approve it. I still think there's so much more that we can improve, and like so much more to learn. But before we go, like I have to just iterate, like the team at Immutable, both in the studio, on a platform, Passport, MindLoader, all of our other partners. That it was. You talk about the challenge of like the NFTs, but like being the coordinator of all of these different moving parts, like the way we made it happen is we just had a lot of people and partners who were really dedicated and stepped up to the plate again and again when we had challenges, and so deeply grateful to the team that's made this happen. They've kept me sane. And like I think the thing that does surprise me a little bit, like when you've worked on a game for a year and change and played the tutorials so many times and the game so many times, I think the thing that surprised me is like, I just keep grinding right now. I'm like, I'm not going to win. I'm not going to be at the top, but I'm like, it's got me at the moment, and that's a good place to be. The last time I had that, was with Gods Unchained, was really playing for quite a bit. Even MTGA before that. But when I go back to some of the classics, like Lord of the Rings Online, like five years of development, by the end of it, I'm like, I just can't deal with this game.
Yeah, no, never want to see it again. Well, I'm glad you're not at that stage.
So I'm glad it's got its hook to me. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Thanks so much for your time, Chris. Always great to talk to you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
And thanks to you for watching, listening to the podcast, wherever you are consuming it. Obviously, your homework for today is immediately to go to your app store and download Guild of Guardians and give it a spin. But other than that, please do subscribe to the podcast every week, putting out new episodes about what's going on in the world of blockchain gaming. Always a wide mix of crazy, brilliant stuff. So I hope you're enjoying it. I certainly am. Do subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.